What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 304 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And as I said either last week or the week before that, I'm still contemplating what day going forward. For right now, hashtag will remain on Wednesdays. But I'm contemplating going forward switching days. Just with starting next week, we'll have Raw on Mondays, NXT and AEW on Wednesdays, and then SmackDown on Fridays. Now I know we'll have Impact on Tuesdays, but not a lot of people watch Impact. Not a lot of people get access, so that's not really on my radar. Although I will be watching it live probably. I'm talking about for the normal shows, the shows that most people watch: Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and likely AEW come next Wednesday. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing yet. Right now, it will remain on Wednesdays, but I would love to know what you guys think, because whatever day I change hashtag to, it'll likely affect Wrestle Rant Radio as well. And I've talked about this before, but it feels weird to do a show on Thursdays for Wrestle Rant Radio. I mean, I guess it might stay that way. I guess it might be the easiest, but with Raw on Mondays, Mondays aren't really an option. I guess I used to do these Q&A videos before Raw on Mondays for a few years, so I guess that is an option. But I just found it easier to do it after Raw and SmackDown were done on Wednesdays. And now that SmackDown's going back to Fridays, it makes it a lot harder to do one of these shows. Especially now that SmackDown will be relevant. Like before when we did hashtag on Mondays or Wednesdays now, whatever, Wrestle Rant Radios on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever. It didn't really matter that I wasn't covering SmackDown because the show was irrelevant at that point. Now it's obviously a bigger talking point with the brand split and stuff like that, which is why I've covered it on Wrestle Rant Radio in recent years. But going forward, now that it's airing live on Fridays at 8 p.m., do I move a show to Saturdays? I feel like for right now, that's not the greatest option. For right now, my schedule fits recording during the week during the days, or at least early on during the day, like I am right now for hashtag. I don't know. I'm not really sure what to do. I really don't know. At some point, it might change. If my schedule changes, maybe I'll move one of the shows, whether it be, hashtag or Wrestle Rant Radio to Saturdays. But for right now, I think we're just going to stick with what it is, with hashtag AskGSM on Wednesdays and Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursdays, which I usually do record anyway, right after I record hashtag on Wednesday afternoons, just to get out of the way, just so it's up live by midnight Eastern time on Thursdays. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I'm just speaking out loud for right now. But anyway, guys, if you want to send in questions to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get started here. First with @RebornAgain, John Ritland from the YouTube machine. Great content. Check him out. Subscribe. Real honesty with John Ritland. His first question was, do you think there's a chance WWE will overdo the scariness of The Fiend by really going over the top with it on Raw in the coming months? I mean, yeah, there's always a chance. WWE is notorious for taking things that work, and even if it's difficult to fuck them up, they somehow find a way. It's like they put effort into fucking people over as soon as they get hot. Becky Lynch and Kofi, they're still very much popular, but they don't feel as hot as they were a couple months ago. Kofi's been doing a great job by and large. Becky's the one who feels, significantly cooler than she did at the onset of 2019, late 2018, even going into WrestleMania 35. She's just not the same star that she was, prior to this point. But anyway, with Bray Wyatt, I hope they don't fuck it up. I am a little skeptical just because he's appearing more on Raw now than he was at any other point since he returned back in April. We would see him before with a new Firefly Funhouse every week. And then around SummerSlam time, when he finally came back and attacked Finn Balor, he honestly only appeared on the shows every other week. We would sometimes see him, sometimes we wouldn't. The Fiend has only showed up on TV maybe 5 or 6 times in the course of the last 2 or 3 months, which is pretty impressive. They've held back from, overexposing him. But, last week he was all over the show. He interrupted Seth Rollins. I think we saw him again a little later on in the night, and then he obviously resurfaced at the end of Raw to lay out Kane. This week, he had a new Firefly Funhouse, and I don't know if we saw him again after that, or before that, rather, but we definitely did see him at the end of the show when he attacked, who was it this week? Braun Strowman during the main event against Seth Rollins. So I am skeptical. I mean, I'm not saying, and I've said this before, I don't think he needs to appear on the show every single week if and when he wins the Universal Championship at Hell in a Cell. Now, I'm not saying, people might be thinking, why would you argue to have him have the Brock Lesnar schedule when people were always complaining about that? I'm not saying that. Brock Lesnar would show up once in like 3 months. He would show up like leading up to Survivor Series, and then we wouldn't see him until fucking January. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you don't have to have him on TV or wrestling, or I don't think they would do that. I think Bray Wyatt has a lot of creative control over this character, and I think he has a lot of input as to what he should be doing. Or I'm not, saying that he's arguing, put the world title on me. I don't think that, put the world title on me, brother. Like, I don't think he's saying that. But, anyway, I do think he would have a big problem with wrestling on the show every single week, as much as Seth Rollins does, or even, I don't know, just appearing on the show. I think they might want to play this safe as much as possible, and he's not going to hold the championship forever. At least if you could do that until WrestleMania, I would say, when he drops it to whoever, whether it be an Aleister Black or I'm not really sure who else it would be. But that's what I would do. So yeah, there is a very good chance they could overdo the scariness of the Fiend. I mean, he's not really scary as it is right now, at least anyone over the age of 12, or maybe even 10. But he's got that cool factor about him, and I really hope that they don't fuck that up in the coming months. Even if they do put the championship on him, and I assume they will, as they should not overexpose the guy. The amount of appearances he makes on the show currently, even now going into Hell in the Cell, I think is fine. One Firefly Funhouse, one appearance at the end of the show. He's not going to be in the ring cutting promos. I don't think the Fiend needs to be out there cutting promos. I think he could be doing his Firefly Funhouse as the Universal Champion. I think that could work. But I think it's a real wait-and-see approach with the Fiend going forward and how they handle him. We can only hope they don't fuck this up. John's second question, with Impact debuting on AXS TV soon, is there a chance that the network becomes the new wrestling channel, at least for alternative promotions, since it has both New Japan Pro Wrestling and Women of Wrestling already on its weekly schedule? I don't know how those shows will be impacted by Impact, no pun intended, will be impacted by the promotion Impact moving to AXS. I don't know. I don't know if we've really had any confirmation on that yet. I know Women of Wrestling, WAW, or WOW, WOW, whatever. I think people call it WOW. I think WOW will be continuing to air on AXS for the foreseeable future. I think they have a second season taped, or it's airing right now, or it will be airing soon. I don't know. I know David McLean, the creator of the show, I just read this morning, I think he confirmed a third season, so I think they're sticking with WOW no matter what. New Japan, I'm not sure. New Japan's been in AXS now for years. I'd be surprised if they had it moved. I mean, you also have to consider, too, I think people might have been thinking the same thing about, like, what about this channel becoming the new, wrestling channel, blah, blah, blah. Destination America. Remember that? Like, we had this whole thing a couple years ago, back in 2015, when Ring of Honor was already debuting on Destination America. Or no, rather, Impact moved to Destination America first at the onset of 2015. Ring of Honor then moved to Destination America by mid-2015. So they were both on the same network for about 6 months or so before Impact moved away from Destination America in early 2016. And then Ring of Honor, I don't know what happened with them. They're not on there anymore. And then Destination America rebranded into a fucking ghost network or something. I believe it was something along those lines. Either it was that or Pop TV, I don't remember. I lost track as Impact has lost so many network deals now, it's ridiculous. But anyway, when it comes to AXS TV, is it the new wrestling channel? I don't think so. I think they have a lot more content than just the wrestling, although the wrestling really is what kind of puts it on the map for a lot of people. I don't think anyone's going out of their way to watch AXS if it's not for Impact or New Japan or Women of Wrestling. I don't even get AXS TV, so I guess other promotions could end up on there at some point. I don't see it becoming this new destination hub for wrestling. I just don't see that happening. I guess it very well could, but it's not like USA Network that has Raw and had SmackDown, now has NXT. That's, at least for WWE, their wrestling network. And now Fox is going to have SmackDown and the new FS1 show, the studio show. I think those are obviously bigger networks than AXS TV, but it's cool. It's cool that Impact is on a bigger channel. It's cool that New Japan and Women of Wrestling likely won't be leaving the channel. They'll be staying on AXS. I think it's cool. I don't think Impact and New Japan will be working together. I know there's still a lot of bad blood, at least on New Japan's end, which at this point, get the fuck over it. I mean, it's been a decade. I think they were upset about the whole Okada thing when they abused his talent a decade ago. But again, it was a fucking decade ago. Under the Dixie Carter regime, it was a long time ago. They have new owners there now. Impact is a lot better. With the exception of the Killer Cross situation, I think they're handling things very well, and they have been for a while now since Don Callis and Scott D'Amore took over about a year and a half ago. There's really no reason for them to not work together. Honestly, they should be working together, especially with WWE being the monopoly that it is and AEW sprouting up. I mean, there is room for other promotions, of course, but they are going to die a fucking death unless they could do something to get more exposure and get more buzz. I mean, New Japan's great, but it's not an American promotion. A lot of people here in America don't really watch the shows unless it's on their streaming service because they don't really have a home here in America except for AXS, and a lot of people don't get access. More people get access than Pursuit, so at least Impact moved up in that sense from where they were for the last couple of years, I guess. I mean, I got Pop TV, I got Destination America. I do not get access. But hey, I think more people get access than fucking Pursuit, and at least they're still on Twitch. But I know this isn't part of your question. I think they should be working together, though. I feel like that's the only real way to survive. I said that to maybe Nick Aldis during an interview when we talked a few months ago. I said, do promotions benefit from working together? Because at that time, they were working with, the NWA was working with Ring of Honor. Now that relationship has ceased for whatever reason. I think that was a dumb idea. I think they should continue to work together, but whatever. I think a lot of promotions can, I said, do promotions really benefit from working with each other? He said, I think that's the only way to survive, especially with WWE and now AEW being on the map. They need to be working together against this conglomerate that is WWE and AEW. So hopefully they can work something out because they are on the same channel, even though there is still that bad blood there, I guess, at least on New Japan's end, from Jado and Gato, whatever. I don't know, but I guess time will tell. His next question, looking at promotions like WWE, Ring of Honor, AEW, New Japan, and others, how would you rate their specific tag team divisions as far as quality? That's a good question. I'm not overly familiar, as many of you know, with New Japan. I don't watch the shows. I watch maybe one or two New Japan shows a year. Wrestle Kingdom and maybe one or two other shows if I hear enough about it. I don't watch the shows regularly. It's just a lot of fucking content as it is right now. So I'm not overly familiar with their tag team division. I don't even really know who they have. I know they have Guerrillas of Destiny. Do they really have any other major tag teams? I know they had Roppongi Vice, and then they broke up, and now they have Roppongi 3K or something like that. I don't really know who else they have, to be honest with you. I know they had Harry Smith and Vance Archer, whatever his name, Lance Archer now, I think. But I don't think they're together anymore. I won't speak to New Japan, but as far as WWE, Ring of Honor, AEW, obviously AEW takes the cake. There's no doubt about it. There's no question. People can argue, WWE has a lot of great teams, and honestly, I would put them at number 2 because they do have a lot of great teams. They're just not doing jack shit with them. We haven't seen the Usos on TV in months. The Revival are the current champions, but they might not be sticking around, despite three tag team title reigns in 2019. I don't think they'll be sticking around when their contracts expire in 2020 because they're not a fan of how WWE treats its tag team division and all this other stuff. They likely feel they could be better off in another promotion like AEW. But they have the Revival, they have the New Day, they have the Usos, they have a lot of good tag teams. I mean, some that are not so good, like the B Team, who gives a shit, the Ascension, who gives a shit. They have Heavy Machinery, very good. They have the Street Profits, Undisputed Era, Danny Burch, Oni Lorcan, if you want to count them. So they have the semblance, they have like the pieces to put together for a great tag team division. And at times we've had a really good tag team division, except they come and they go and they care about it and they don't care about it, and it's an up and down roller coaster with the WWE tag team division. But they do have the teams though. Unlike Ring of Honor. Who the fuck does Ring of Honor have? They have the Kingdom, they have the Bouncers, they have the Briscoes, and I guess they have Villain Enterprises. So they have a couple good teams. Lifeblood, so they have a pretty good tag team division. I'm sorry to Ring of Honor. I thought they didn't really have that many teams. But a lot of those teams, like the Bouncers, they're getting over, which is cool. The Kingdom are good. Don't really have much buzz, but they're good. The Briscoes have been there forever. I mean, that's like, honestly, that's like their equivalent of the Usos, a team that will likely never leave. or be split up. Even though they've kind of gone off and done their own separate things, I think they are better off together at this point. They had the Young Bucks, but they left, obviously. Villain Enterprises will likely continue to be a thing, even after Marty Scurll likely leaves in a few months. So they have them, and they're very good. Lifeblood is great, too. So, yeah, they have, it's only 5 teams, but then again, WWE, it's not like they have 5 amazing teams. I guess they have the New Day, Usos, Revival, Undisputed Era, even though you can kind of count NXT as its own entity. And they have some great teams in NXT UK, too, with Mustache Mountain. They have Morgan Webster, Flash Morgan Webster, and Mark Andrews. They have the Grizzled Young Veterans. They have Gallus. They have Imperium. So they have some great teams as well. But that's, again, 2 different separate brands, not counting the main. I really kind of count the main roster as its own thing because it's not like the NXT UK Tag Team division is merged with the Raw and SmackDown one. Same thing with NXT. So I kind of, have that as its own separate thing. But, yeah, obviously AEW takes the cake because they have a lot of amazing teams. They have the Young Bucks, the Lucha Brothers, really anyone in that tag team title tournament. Private Party are really, really good from what I've seen. I think they have a very bright future in AEW, just in wrestling in general. Private Party, Young Bucks, Lucha Brothers, Jurassic Express with Jungle Boy and, what's his name, Luchasaurus. Those 2 are great. Best Friends, Angelico and Jack Evans, SCU, Dark Order, they're great wrestlers. They just do nothing for me personally. But yeah, they have a lot of great teams. They have a lot of great teams in AEW, and I think they have the best tag team division of them all, at least at the moment. And I think that that'll remain the case for a while just because the Young Bucks are obviously, for the right reasons, so high on tag team wrestling. They're going to want their division to be as stacked as possible. They also have LAX. They have Santina and Ortiz and Santana from Impact. They just signed there as well as of All Out. So they have an amazing tag team division, and I hope they can only continue to build on it from this point forward. John's next question. So they've got Asuka, Kairi Sane, Sonya Deville, and Ember Moon, and more chasing after the 24/7 championship as of last night's SmackDown. Do they just hate any other women on the main roster that aren't the 4 horsewomen? Yeah, that was kind of sad to see. Props to Kairi for making it funny with the telescope, but it was so stupid. It was sad to see Asuka chasing the 24/7 title. It was sad to see Kairi Sane going after the 24/7 title. They're all great talent. Sonya's good. Ember Moon is good. At least Sonya's doing something with Mandy Rose. They've been on TV more than probably any other women on SmackDown aside from Charlotte and Bayley since the beginning of 2019. But Ember has done a whole lot of nothing. She went for the championship at SummerSlam, lost, and she lost to fucking Lacey Evans on Raw this week. What does that tell you? Asuka, Kairi have done jack shit since WrestleMania. They have done nothing as a tag team. So, it's not that they hate the women, obviously, but it's really that they have no plans for anyone outside of the 4 horsewomen. They'll run that into the ground, and that's great. I love the 4 horsewomen feud they have going on right now with Becky and Charlotte and Sasha and Bayley. That's great, but the issue is that they need to start building up more women outside of those 4 ladies, because it's going to come to a certain point where the Banks and Lynch feud will run its course. Same thing with Charlotte and Bayley. They will need more women in that title picture. And they have the talent. That's the problem. They have the talent. They're just not doing anything with them. Lacey Evans is on her... she got called away too soon. At least she's getting better. But Lacey Evans was already in the title picture for like 2 or 3 months. That didn't really do wonders. The matches weren't that good. Nia Jax should be on her way back at some point. I'm not a Nia Jax fan, but... she's another body to have on the roster, I guess. Ruby Riott is really good. I hope they can kind of do something with her when she gets back. I'm not holding my breath because they weren't doing anything with her before. But, again, we'll see. What other women do they have, to be honest with you? Ember Moon is really good, obviously. Asuka and Kairi Sane, those women should be split up. I said this last week or the week before. They absolutely need to be split up in this draft coming up next week. I know they need more tag teams for their women's division, their women's tag team division. But Asuka and Kairi Sane are not the answer because they are 2 tremendous talents and they should not be wasted in a fucking pointless-ass division. If they're not going to take it seriously, I don't want to see Asuka and Kairi Sane in that division going for those pointless, meaningless championships. I'd rather see them on their own. Alexa Bliss, I get. She's already been in the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship pictures multiple times. Having her do her thing in the tag team division with Nikki Cross, awesome. Asuka and Kairi, though, should be off doing their own thing separately. I would put Asuka on Raw. and I would keep Kairi Sane on SmackDown. That's what I would do. I think they'd be better off going their separate ways, and I don't know. I just think there's really no worth in keeping them around as a tag team. They're not going to win the tag team titles, which I guess they might if they face Cross and Nikki at Hell in a Cell. I would have them go for the tag team titles at Hell in a Cell and then lose, obviously, and then break them up in the draft 5 days after that. That's what I would do. At Darnell Friedman from Twitter, his question was, why doesn't Impact go back to Thursdays? We need wrestling on Thursdays for those who do not watch the NFL. I mean, we also need wrestling on Tuesdays, right? I mean, on Tuesdays, you're going to have a day, free of wrestling now that SmackDown's on Fridays. So if it's, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. Impact, it makes sense for it to go to Tuesdays just because that was the same time slot that SmackDown had. So wrestling fans may want to fill that void by watching Impact, I guess, even though a lot of people don't get AXS TV, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't think it'll affect the ratings one way or the other. It was really only Tuesdays or Thursdays, because Thursdays, I'm partial to Impact on Thursdays just because, that's where it was for such a long time. It was on Thursdays for years and years and years. They moved to different days. They were on Fridays. They were on Wednesdays. They were on Mondays. They've been all over the fucking calendar every single day of the week, except for maybe Saturdays or Sundays. One of the two they weren't on. But every other day of the week has been crossed off multiple times. They were on Tuesdays for a time, too, I think in 2016, until SmackDown moved to Tuesdays, and then they moved to Thursdays, and then they moved to Fridays after they got bumped from Pop TV. So that's why they've been on Fridays for the past couple of, about a year now or so, which is a fucking joke. 10 p.m. on Fridays, give me a break. That's ridiculous. But anyway, when it comes to Impact on Tuesdays, Thursdays, to me it doesn't really matter. At least it's on one of the two and not at 10 p.m. on Fridays anymore, because that was a death sentence. 205 Live is not any better off. They're not. I'll talk more about 205 Live momentarily, but they're going to be at 10 p.m. on a Friday too. And if Impact couldn't make it, they couldn't cut it on Fridays at 10 p.m. Eastern time, I don't think 205 Live will be any different. I know 205 Live will actually be live, very likely. But I don't know. I just think it's stupid. Maybe as I record this, they already came out with information regarding 205 Live and where it's headed, but as of last night, we have no idea. Based off the rumor mill, from what I gathered, it'll continue to air live after SmackDown as they tape it after SmackDown on Fridays, which I think is a massive mistake. Just put it before 205, or put it before NXT on Wednesdays and tape it at fucking Full Sail, or just merge it with NXT. Doing it Friday nights live after SmackDown is stupid. No one wants to watch it as it is. Watching it at 10 p.m. on a Friday is stupid. It's just dumb. Who would want to stay for that shit? People don't want to stay as it is right now, So anyway, as far as Impact goes, Tuesdays is okay. And now for people who do watch both, which I'm not sure as many people, but if you watch Impact and you watch the NFL, you can watch Impact on Tuesdays and you can watch the NFL on Thursdays. It's a win-win. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, their first question was Bray Wyatt the best to come out of NXT Season 2? Obviously. It wasn't a complete bust. Low-key won that season. He was gone within 2 months, so obviously he wasn't exactly a success story. Michael McGillicuddy, a.k.a. Curtis Axel, came out of NXT Season 2, former tag team champion, intercontinental champion. But obviously Bray Wyatt is a much bigger star than Curtis Axel. Alex Riley came out of that season. I thought he did well for himself in the beginning, and then he fell off the face of the fucking earth by 2011, and then by 2013. When did he get released? 2016? He was in the company for a while. He was in the company for a solid 5 years before he finally got released. But he was on commentary. He was in NXT. Never did anything, though. So obviously Bray Wyatt is the biggest breakout star of that season. Not the biggest breakout star of those early incarnations of the show. That would be Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan was on Season 1, as was Barrett and Slater, and who hasn't really, done much. He's been a former tag team champion, but I would say Barrett and Ryback were bigger stars than Heath Slater, even though they're not there anymore. I know Slater lasted longer, but still. Daniel Bryan is the biggest star to come out of NXT in general. But Bray Wyatt, out of Season 2, just for shits and giggles, let's look it up real quick. NXT Season 2. Let's see. I typed in Season 1 by accident. Let's see. Who was on that season? I know Lucky Cannon. God, you remember that guy? What a fucking failure he was. Titus O'Neil, I forgot, was on that season of NXT. God, he's a former tag team champion, first ever 24/7 champion, but obviously Bray Wyatt's a bigger star than he is. Lucky Cannon, loser. Eli Cottonwood, remember that guy, the mustache guy? Fucking loser. And Percy Watson was on that show too. He went on to do nothing. I think he left the company in 2013, but he did come back to do commentary for NXT for a few years, and he's also gone as it is right now too. But yeah, out of everyone in that season, it goes without a doubt of saying that Bray Wyatt is the biggest breakout star of them all. Obviously, he started out as Husky Harris, but he went on to evolve to, to become Bray Wyatt a few years after that, after going back to NXT. And, the only one out of those guys to win a world championship, and rightfully so, because none of these other guys are world championship material. Caval is great, but he would have never become a world champion in WWE. I guess the same people said that about Daniel Bryan. I guess people said that about him too. But I don't know. I think Husky Harris is a much better talent. Bray Wyatt is a much better talent than Caval overall if you include his mic skills and character work and stuff like that. His next question, obviously, do you think that Shawn Michaels' last match should have remained against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26 almost a decade ago? Yeah, it goes without saying. I think for him to come back at that Crown Jewel match with Triple H against the Brothers of Destruction last November was a fucking waste. The only what's the word I'm looking for here? The only thing that would have saved that from being a complete mess, and the match sucked. Michaels probably looked the best out of anyone in that match, to be honest with you. Kane did not look good. His mask fell off. Taker looked like shit per usual. Triple H got hurt like 2 minutes in. Shawn Michaels had a great performance considering the circumstances. But really the only thing that would have made that worth it was if AJ Styles faced Michaels at WrestleMania. Was if Shawn Michaels came back for more matches. Like, if he's going to come back, just make it a full-on run. To have it be a one-and-done, at least in his case, was a complete waste. Because he already ended his career on the perfect note. Like, for Goldberg, the match with Taker at the Super Saudi Show, Super Showdown, whatever the fuck you want to call it, was atrocious. So a one-and-done with him against Dolph at SummerSlam worked. It worked. He squashed him in 2 minutes, and it was over. They're very likely building towards a rematch for whatever the fucking reason. I have no idea why. Who cares? They have no reason to do a rematch. That being said, that notwithstanding, the one-off rematch that Goldberg had with Dolph worked. I don't need to see Goldberg come back for a full-on run. With Shawn Michaels, that first match, there was so much bad blood surrounding it, and I'm not talking about in a storyline sense. I'm talking about the show sucked, the match sucked. It was an awful way for Michaels to come back, even though he looked good. He's bald now, but whatever. It's nothing, not a big deal. Even though it was weird to see a bald Shawn Michaels in the ring, it just didn't really feel natural. But at least have him come back for another match. I know Michaels said months ahead of that he would only consider coming back for a tag team match, so the pressure wasn't on, so he can kind of slack off a little bit with it being a tag team match. But you know what? Fuck it. He showed he could still go, come back. AJ Styles, I'm sure, could carry him to a great match. Wouldn't have to be 5 stars. Like, it can be a good, passable match for him to end his career on. And he won, too, in his last match. I'm not saying everyone has to lose in their last match, but it made no sense for him to come back for that fucking match, beat Taker and Kane, who are still around, by the way, and then leave again. It made absolutely no sense. So, with that being said, I think Triple H is actually on a winning streak. Now that I think about it, he beat Batista at WrestleMania. He won that tag team match at Crown Jewel. He beat The Undertaker at the other Super Showdown show in Australia last year. So he's got a couple wins under his belt as of right now. But anyway, as far as Shawn Michaels, yes, he should have retired and stayed retired after WrestleMania 26. Your thoughts on the Undisputed Era all becoming champions this past Wednesday? Thought it was great. It was what needed to happen. They did it. It was awesome. The match was great. Very happy to see after so many months of building and hype and the prophecy. I think even Adam Cole said at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, the Undisputed Era would be draped in gold in 2019. And honestly, I didn't believe it there for a while. I really didn't, because, Bobby Fish was hurt for a time, and then I don't think they were doing anything coming into 2019. They weren't doing anything. I think it was O'Reilly and Strong actually lost the tag titles to the Viking Raiders, the War Raiders, whatever, at that January show. They lost the tag titles at not the Philadelphia show. Where were they? Phoenix? They dropped the tag titles there. Adam Cole wasn't even on the card. Obviously, Roddy wasn't on the card. I don't think anyway, but they lost that War Games match about a year ago, so they weren't exactly on a roll until after, and even after the takeover in April, Adam Cole failed to win the NXT Championship. It wasn't until, right after TakeOver 25, after Adam Cole became the NXT Champion, then it looked like, okay, maybe they could, put the championships in all these guys. They could have the Undisputed Era become the new Tag Team Champions after the Street Profits get their run. And we can also put the mid-card title on Roderick Strong. And here we are. They all have championship gold, which is amazing. I think it's fucking awesome. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with it. And hopefully they can hold the championships for a while. And it's not short-lived like the OC when they were the U.S. and Tag Team Champions. They took the Tag Team titles off of Gallows and Anderson almost as quickly as they put them on them. So hopefully Undisputed Era have better luck. And they can continue to dominate NXT for the foreseeable future. His next question, who do you think will finally end Shayna Baszler's NXT Women's Championship reign? It could be Candice as of next week's show. She is going for the championship on next week's NXT. I don't think it will be Candice. Ultimately, I think it could be. I don't think the reign ends on that show. I think Io Shirai interferes, and then they build the Shayna dropping the championship maybe at the November show. If it's not Candice, maybe Dakota Kai. It could be Dakota Kai. Tegan Nox would be cool in NXT. I would love to see Tegan Nox take that championship, but she appears to be more of a fixture in the NXT UK women's division right now, even though she should be on NXT too. But yeah, maybe Dakota Kai, because Dakota Kai is coming back, and Dakota Kai has faced Shayna Baszler a few times, has always lost, but they've always had a really good chemistry, and you could say that Shayna put her on the shelf with that injury many months ago, and now she's coming back for revenge. So, Dakota Kai would be a very real possibility. I don't know how likely it is, but there's a chance she returns on tonight's show. We'll see how she's positioned on the card. But, Bianca got her shot and failed. Mia Yim failed. Even Io Shirai went for the championship a number of times and failed. So, if it's not Candice, which would be cool, I think Dakota Kai would be a very solid consolation prize. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his first question was, does Chad Gable's current push remind you of Daniel Bryan's 2010 push? And could you see him taking the Intercontinental Championship from Shinsuke Nakamura or the United States Championship from AJ Styles? A little bit. Daniel Bryan's 2010 push, I remember oh so fondly just because Night of Champions 2010, the night where he beat Miz for the U.S. Championship, was only the second ever pay-per-view I purchased. I bought the Royal Rumble show that same year, because how can you not buy the Royal Rumble, especially with the hype surrounding that show. And then I bought Night of Champions that September, and it seems like a weird show to buy, but honestly, I used to love the Night of Champions pay-per-views. I thought they were a great show, just because that first Night of Champions pay-per-view was really when I started to get into wrestling in 2008. So the 2010 installment, held a very special place in my heart. And I thought it was a great show. I watched the back only a couple weeks ago before Clash of Champions, and I loved it. But anyway, Daniel Bryan, he had that whole thing with The Miz, and that's really why he won that championship. Chad Gable, I think, is much better off than Daniel Bryan was 9 years ago, to be honest with you. Daniel Bryan, it made storyline sense for him to take that championship from The Miz at that time. But he wasn't really over. Like, he was slowly getting over, and people wanted him back, and Chad Gable, I think, not that he's the most over guy in the roster, but I think Chad Gable is getting more opportunities to go out there and have great matches. Daniel Bryan, he was only really popular because of the feud with The Miz, and after the feud with The Miz wrapped up, he wasn't doing a lot after the feud with The Miz. He was United States champion for like 6 months, which is a long time, but did he have any memorable feuds at all? Not really. I don't really think he defended it much. He dropped the championship to Sheamus right before WrestleMania 27, and that was it until he won Money in the Bank a couple months after that, and then became world champion, and the rest is history. But, in 2010, he wasn't, they had that match, that awesome match at Night of Champions in Chicago, but that was really about it. Chad Gable's going out there and having great performances every single time. He's getting more of an opportunity to shine than Daniel Bryan did 9 years ago, because he had 2 awesome matches, even a great match with Andrade, but 2 great matches with Baron Corbin, one ending in a DQ win for him this past Monday on Raw. Beat Mike Kanellis on SmackDown in quick fashion. Hopefully Chad Gable, they don't abandon his push when, after the draft and they put him on separate brands, and they already technically are on separate brands, Gable and Corbin are. But I'm liking the feud. They've had really good matches so far. They have a great dynamic, awesome chemistry. And hopefully it does end up with Gable becoming either IC or US champion. I would love for him to stay on SmackDown and beat Nakamura for that championship. If it's not going to be Sammy, like we said before, if it's not going to build to Sammy turning on Nakamura or Nakamura turning on Sammy and Sammy winning that championship from, his old rival in NXT, Shinsuke Nakamura, Chad Gable makes sense, if only for a short run. I think Nakamura and Gable could have some really good matches. So, I mean, AJ would be great too, but I think Nakamura is staying on SmackDown, and I think AJ's staying on Raw. Unless they drop their championships in the next couple weeks. But I think it's more likely that, they stay where they are. The championships don't change shows again, and they stay right where they are. But I would love to see Gable as U.S. champion would obviously make sense because he is the All-American athlete. He's an Olympic wrestler, whatever. An Olympic athlete. It would make sense, and maybe at some point we can see that. But if he stays put on SmackDown, he should be the one to beat Nakamura for that championship. Buddy Murphy would be cool too. Even Apollo Crews, Ali, I thought would have been cool, but they've all lost. I think Buddy Murphy hasn't, but he's not even on TV right now. He had that great match with Ali, and we haven't seen him since on SmackDown. But Gable would be a great person, the perfect person rather, to take that championship from Shinsuke Nakamura ultimately. His second question, do you think there's any chance they have Seth Rollins beat The Fiend clean at Hell in a Cell? I mean, there's always a chance. They could do whatever the fuck they want. They could have Kona Reeves come out and surprise everyone and be the one to beat Rollins for the championship. Like, they could do whatever they want. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not like an actual sports game. Like, do you think there's a chance this team could be that team? No, I mean, they obviously script. I mean, I know that's not what you mean, but you also have to consider, this is WWE. They do a lot. I mean, they deserve credit where credit is due for getting certain things right and keeping Wyatt this strong for so long now, which is great. But they are also notorious, like I said at the start of this show, for fucking things up, cooling people off, making the wrong decisions when it makes absolutely no sense to. Like when CM Punk lost to Triple H in that Night of Champions match back in 2011. Why the fuck did they do that? We still have no explanation for that 8 years later, except for the fact that Triple H's ego got the best of him. That's it. Other than that, I have no reason why they would have done that. So they could very well have The Fiend lose clean and have that be it and move on from there. I don't think they will. I think they're smart enough to put the championship on Wyatt. He deserves it. It's a great character. They could have someone interfere. They could have Taker interfere. I heard people saying that, and that could build to The Fiend and Taker at Survivor Series. I guess, but I think The Fiend should win the championship. I don't want to see him get pinned so soon. They could always do a no contest. I mean, they've done that before inside Hell in the Cell. We've seen that a million times. They did it a fucking year ago with Strowman and Roman. I don't want to see that again. I feel like it'd be so fucking lazy. If you're going to do that shit, don't put the match inside Hell in the Cell. It's as simple as that. Don't do it inside Hell in the Cell if you're going to have it end in a non-finish. That's fucking ridiculous. But anyway, I don't think they will. I think they know that putting the belt on The Fiend is the right call. And I think that's what we're going to get come Hell in the Cell next Sunday. So hopefully they stick to that. They don't change it. They don't have Rollins win clean. He could. There's a small chance he could. I hope he doesn't, though. Or even with interference, I don't think Rollins walks out with the championship. I mean, I was going to say, who do you have him defend against if it's not The Fiend? But there's the draft coming up. So they could always move people from SmackDown to Raw. And he's got a whole bunch of fresh challengers. But I would keep Rollins right where he is on Raw. I would keep Wyatt right where he is on Raw as well as the Universal Champion going into the draft next Friday. And I'll talk more about that with The Fiend and Raw and stuff like that. RJ asked a question similar to that a little later on. But Jeremy's third question here, could you see Braun Strowman getting added to the Universal Championship match at Hell in a Cell? Again, I think there's a chance, but it makes no sense. I think there's a better chance of Rey Mysterio getting added before Braun Strowman. I guess you could say, Braun came close to beating Rollins on Raw before Wyatt interfered, blah, blah, blah. The guy's a fucking loser. He lost clean at Clash of Champions. Move on. There's no reason for him to be in that match at that pay-per-view. And he's not going to win anyway, so who gives a fuck? I think Rollins can afford to take a loss to Bray Wyatt. He does not have to, you don't have to include Braun just to get Braun get pinned by the Fiend. There's no point. There's no purpose. Just keep it the way it is. Rollins and Wyatt, have Rollins and Ray do their thing on Monday's Raw. Maybe Rollins wins clean and then he attacks Rey Mysterio, that being the Fiend. Or maybe they have the match end in a no contest. I would like to see it end clean. Rey Mysterio can take a loss. It's not a big deal. They've already had non-finishes in the main event of Raw for the past 2 weeks now anyway, with Rude and Rollins, and then Rollins and Strowman this week on Raw. So I would have it be Rollins and Rey end clean, and then the Fiend strikes, if he strikes at all. But yeah, could they add Strowman into the match on Sunday? Next Sunday, rather? I guess, but it just wouldn't make any sense. Because I know the Fiend attacked Strowman, but he also attacked fucking Kane. Should Kane get added too? Like, obviously not. And Strowman's a fucking loser anyway, so no. Keep it Rollins and the Fiend at Hell in the Cell. That's the better match anyway. At noob_n_co 1991, their first question was, what are your thoughts on Asuka's YouTube gaming channel for the past 3 weeks? I have not seen it. I have yet to see it. I think I saw a thumbnail, but I have yet to watch any of her videos, so I can't really comment on that. Hopefully it's going well, though. It's great to see her back on SmackDown, but her strong suit is in the ring after all. I mean, the gaming channel's cool, but, hopefully that doesn't take away from her time on SmackDown, and we can't see her back at the forefront of either the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championship pictures before long. His second question, which superstars do you want to get drafted in the WWE draft in October? I mean, everyone's getting drafted because they're kind of blowing up the rosters and starting from scratch. But if you're saying what superstars do I want to see switch shows come next Friday, based off where they are currently, I think Samoa Joe should go to SmackDown. I think Baron Corbin would be cool back on SmackDown. If not Drew McIntyre, I think he could be a top star over there. Yeah, so either Joe, McIntyre, and or Corbin. I would like to see Randy Orton switch shows. He's been on SmackDown since the start of SmackDown Live back in 2016, so I think he'd benefit from a move. I would keep AJ where he is. I would keep Roman where he is. I would keep Rollins where he is. I would keep The Fiend where he is. Again, I'll talk more about that coming up. What other names are there? I would keep... Maybe they want to keep Sasha and Bayley together. I guess they could. I would move Sasha to SmackDown since she is wearing blue. But I also want to see her win the Raw Women's Championship. So, I don't know. I guess I would keep Sasha on Raw, and I would keep Becky on Raw too. I don't know. I would keep the Four Horsemen right where they are. I wouldn't really have them switch shows. I think they're fine right where they are. That, and then who else? Who do they have? Other, Ember Moon. She was already moved to SmackDown. Maybe Balor moves back to Raw to reunite with the OC. That wouldn't be a bad move. I already talked about what moves I would make in the draft weeks ago. I'm just kind of going over them again. Obviously, Brock Lesnar should go to SmackDown in the draft. That's an obvious must if he's becoming champion on next Friday, which he should. Daniel Bryan, I've seen some people say, maybe he'll go to Raw. I would keep him right where he is, to be honest with you. I would have him stay put. The Revival should officially move to SmackDown. There's a couple of moves I would make. But yeah, I would keep them right where they are. Most people right where they are, but I would move a select few people, like the ones I just mentioned. And their third question, are we going to see more championships in AEW? I know there were talks. I know Tony Khan was on Stone Cold's podcast a couple months ago. Maybe back in June or July. And he said something about women's tag team titles, but that's not something they're looking at anytime soon, which is good, because there's no need to. They have barely a women's division to fill out their current, women's title picture. Now, I know there were a lot of women in that Battle Royal at All Out, but a lot of those women were not contracted. Ivelisse, Tenille Dashwood, Mercedes Martinez. There were a lot of women in that thing. She's McKenzie. I don't think any of them are under contract to AEW. That's a lot of great women. None of them are officially in AEW for the most part, except for like Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, Rio, and a few others. So I know Allie is too, but they need more than just that. Brandy Rhodes, Awesome Kong. They need more names than just that. So hopefully not anytime soon. They already have, the people were asking about a mid-card championship. Do they have a mid-card title? No, they don't. At some point, they will likely introduce a mid-card championship or a secondary title, whatever. I think it's only a matter of time. Not anytime soon, but probably by the beginning of 2020. Other than that, there's really no need for any more championships. They have a women's title, a world title, tag titles, and that's about it. They need a secondary championship at some point as their roster expands. But beyond that, there's no need for any championships. They don't need a cruiserweight title. They don't need a women's tag team title. They don't need... what else does WWE have they don't really need? They have the cruiserweight, women's tag team, the 24/7 championship. Like, they don't need any shit like that. Just Stick to a secondary world tag team and women's, and you're golden. A lot like NXT, they don't have any more championships. They might have the UK title sometimes and sometimes the Cruiserweight Championship, but by and large, they stick with what they have, that being the North American NXT tag titles and then the women's championship as well. At Scarlett want to close it out here with their 3 questions. First one being, what do you think will happen with 205 Live before 2019 ends? It's a good question because I tweeted just last night. I was stunned that WWE made no mention whatsoever on 205 Live this week of where the show is going starting next week. I mean, I guess it could stay on Tuesdays at 10, but why the fuck would it? Because SmackDown's not going to be there. I assume it's moving after SmackDown on Fridays. So, someone said to me on Twitter, oh, maybe they'll tape it after Raw or before Raw on Mondays. I would scrap main event. Fuck main event. Who gives a shit about main event? Scrap main event. It's a waste of a show. Tape 205 Live and then air it on Tuesdays. Yeah, that could work. I would still, I think that's better than airing it live on Fridays. I really do. I would rather see it be taped and not be live, whatever. And, have the show, I don't know, I would have the show be taped before Raw, have a livelier crowd, and then air on its own night, then just air live after SmackDown when the crowds won't care, and it's too late on a Friday, no one will give a shit. So I would do that. The Raw idea I like a little more, but still, I would tape the show at Full Sail before NXT on Wednesdays, because they have the building anyway. So instead of doing a dark match, just tape 205 Live or air it live on the network. Why the fuck not? And then go straight into NXT. Or tape it at Full Sail, air it on Thursdays. I don't know. Figure it out. Or air it after NXT. I don't give a shit. Something along those lines would be better than whatever the fuck they have going on right now. So, I think it will very likely remain after SmackDown, unfortunately, and air on Friday nights. That's what it's looking like. But I'm just baffled that not once during last night's show did they make any sort of announcement what the future holds for 205 Live. Not a single one. Not a single mention. So am I supposed to tune in at 10 p.m. next week and expect the show? I don't think so. They made no mention of the show. I know, obviously, people who have the network will likely see it on .com if the show moves. But, they've been, announcing and, building around SmackDown, moving to Fridays on Fox and all this other shit for months. 205 Live, I realize, is not that big of a priority, but the show moves next week. How do you not say on the last show before you move, hey, we're moving to Fridays after SmackDown? How the fuck does that happen? It's just mind-boggling to me, but I don't think they're closing down the show. I don't think they want to admit defeat, even though they probably should. I think they should just scrap the show from the SmackDown touring schedule altogether and put it Full Sail, but that's just me. But very likely, what do I think will happen? It'll continue to air live after SmackDown on Fridays at 10 p.m., unfortunately. I guess it's better than the show disbanding, but it's still not ideal in the slightest. Their second question, any thoughts on the name of AEW Dynamite? It's a fucking name. I saw people saying, oh, it's stupid, it's whatever. The channel's name is TNT. Monday Nitro of WCW, obviously, maybe that has something to do with it too. I don't know. It doesn't really. I think it's a nice name. I honestly don't really have an issue with it. I don't. I saw people pooping on it. Not a lot of people. But I saw some people saying, "Oh, it's a dumb name." Who cares? Fucking Stomping Grounds was a dumb name too. But Full Gear sucks too. I think that's a much worse name for a pay-per-view than the weekly television show. It could be way worse. Stomping Grounds sucked, and the show was good. The name sucked, but the show is actually pretty good. So with the name, it's a fucking name. It doesn't really matter. But honestly, AEW Dynamite, it's not Wednesday Night Dynamite. It's just Dynamite. It's really not that big of a deal. I think it's an okay name. And it might just grow on me after a while too, because anyone complaining will likely only be complaining for the next, maybe 2 weeks. And they'll get over it and then they'll move on. Like everything else with wrestling fans. And then the last question of the day also comes from @Scarlet1. Their question was, any predictions on how Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston on SmackDown's Fox debut will go down? I think it's just going to be a straight-up match, and Brock wins. I don't think they do an angle where the match doesn't happen. I don't think someone will interfere and cost Brock the championship. I don't think Kofi will win. I think Brock goes into the match, and I think Kofi lasts a little longer than he did in Japan a couple of years ago, Beast in the East. I watched that match back with Alexis a couple days ago, and he got squashed in like 2 minutes, maybe. I thought it was 5 minutes. It was 2 minutes max. So it shouldn't be that because Kofi's he's been built up so well on SmackDown in 2019. I think it'd be a waste of all that momentum he has right now just to go in there and get squashed. It's not like he's John Cena, who can afford a loss like that. Kofi getting squashed would not do him well whatsoever. So have him look competitive, have him look good in defeat, maybe even come close to beating Brock, or at least tease that, but have Brock go over in the end. I don't think Kofi should win. It would make absolutely no sense. You could have someone interfere, which may not be the worst thing if it sets up something intriguing, like Aleister Black maybe, as long as Black beats Brock, but I don't think he will. Other than that, I really have no preference. I really don't. I mean, who else would interfere? Like The Undertaker again? Bray Wyatt, but he's going after the Universal Championship, so obviously not. I don't know. I really don't. But I do think Brock, hey, maybe they turn him heel. Maybe they have the New Day cost Brock the match. They fuck over Brock, but they don't have him get pinned. They just have New Day interfere and just beat the shit out of Brock, and they turn New Day heel again. That may not be the worst thing either, because they've been baby faces now for so long, for the past 3.5 years. It might serve them well to turn heel, and then Kofi has, that breathes new life into Kofi Kingston as WWE champion. But to do a non-finish on such a big show would be kind of underwhelming. I think it's more likely Brock straight up beats Kofi and becomes the new WWE champion. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 304 of #AskGSM for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for checking out the show. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So again, to kind of go full circle here, let me know what you guys think of the show switching days at some point down the road. If it's easier to listen to it after Raw, after SmackDown, for right now, it will remain on Wednesdays for the foreseeable future. I think Wednesdays are the easiest for the time being, but if you want to do it before, or after SmackDown, I think the Q&A videos are okay doing during the week, during the wrestling shows, like on a Wednesday. WrestleRant Radio is really what I have to figure out, just because it is harder to record the show on Wednesdays now, with everything happening on Wednesday nights and Friday nights with NXT, AEW, and SmackDown. But I'll figure that out. Anyway, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. We'll be right back here next Wednesday with another all-new episode of #AskGSM. Oddly enough, not coming off the heels of a SmackDown show. So maybe I'll do the show on Tuesdays. Who the fuck knows? We'll figure it out. Anyway, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.